as Young fired.
Perfect. Can you all hear me okay? Check, 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 check. Perfect. Okay. So her sign says pantheism. That's one of our worldviews. Give me another religion that y'all have heard of. Okay, Islam. I'm going to come to you, Mabel. Okay, if you'll come here to me, you're going to stand over here, Weston. And And I'm going to clarify this one. Yours is theism, because Islam does fit into theism. And I'm going to clarify what that means. Maybe what were you going to say? What's that? Polytheism. She went for the whole worldview. Come on up for me. Go stand over with McKinley. Polytheism. There's your little sign. And what's one more? Atheism. Come on up. Okay. So you're going to stand over here too. All right. So in our worldviews, what we've got, there's lots of religions, guys, and you've probably heard of other religions. Sikh, Hinduism, Baha'i. There's lots of different religions, but they all kind of fall into a handful of worldviews. And you could probably expand on these worldviews a little bit, but for our purposes, there's essentially 4 big worldviews, okay? Here's 2 of them, theism and atheism. Theism, some examples like Weston's got over here, are Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And we'll talk about what are some criteria for theism. Essentially, it's that they believe in one God, okay? In atheism, I say here there's some examples. You may hear of materialism or naturalism or even something called nihilism. That's the belief in, I put in quotes, no gods. They believe in none for a God. I put that in quotes because, guys, I think no matter what you believe, I think it's true that we were designed to worship our Creator. And so if you have said in your mind that you don't believe in God, that there's no such thing as God, that doesn't take away your desire to worship. So what we see is people, even if they reject the God that we're referring to, the God of the Bible, they wind up worshiping something. And you might notice it. They wind up worshiping maybe themselves, or they worship a celebrity, or they worship a government ideology, or they worship some other created thing. Instead of the Creator, they worship the creation. Now, that right there is idolatry. We've made something else our idol, our worship. So I put that in none. The second one, or the other 2 major worldviews are pantheism and polytheism. So let's talk about that real quick. A in front of something negates it, and so atheism means no God, whereas theism itself, theos means God, means that belief in that one God. Pan means across. So a pantheist, we see this in a lot of kind of Eastern religions, like McKinley said, Hinduism, but we also see it in kind of more New Age stuff. If you had anybody who said that they believe in kind of good vibes or good energy, they're actually practicing pantheism, okay? And then polytheism, guys, poly just means a lot or many, and so somebody might be polytheistic. We think of this kind of a long time ago in like Greek mythology or Roman mythology, Norse gods like Thor or something, but we're actually seeing a resurgence of it, and I want you guys to keep an eye out for it in your own like friend groups, but people who consider themselves pagan. That's kind of the worship of nature, or maybe kind of that there's a god of the sun or the god of rain or something. And we've also seen, especially with young ladies, is a resurgence in Wiccan practicing. And so that's kind of they'll say, it's about being very loving and kind and respecting nature, but it all kind of rejects the one true God. So let's talk about how we figure out what your worldview is. And I want you to do this. You guys each have your own worldview. We got to make sure, though, that it's intellectually consistent. So what you do when you're checking your worldview is you ask yourself, what's the nature of God? What's the nature of man? What's the cause of suffering? And what's the solution for suffering? So let's go through each of those questions for the other worldviews, and then we'll come to Weston, okay? So what you got? You've got atheism. What's the nature of God from an atheistic worldview? That there's not one, right? Well, there's no such thing as God. Nature created itself, that kind of thing. What's the nature of man from an atheistic worldview? That man is inherently what? Good or bad? Good. Oh, that man's the pinnacle. Since there's no God, man's the pinnacle, and so man has to be good. If things aren't good in our world, it's not because of man, it's because maybe societies are bad, so we need to fix societies. But the individual person is, they're good. And So that's the viewpoint of the atheist. You can see how that would change how they make decisions if they think that they're inherently good. That means that everything we do is good. That means the decisions, how I choose right from wrong, just comes down to what feels good or what I want to do because I'm inherently good. To an atheist, what's the cause of suffering? It's not us, right? Because we're inherently good. So the cause of suffering is like societies, bad systems in place. And then what's the solution for suffering? Well, maybe getting those societies to change. And because we don't believe in heaven, we have to create our heaven on earth. That you might have heard like a utopia. That's what communists tend to do, is they want to create a heaven on earth because they don't believe in one after this life. And so the solution for suffering is changing the systems, changing the economic policies. Guys, every time this has been tried, it's turned out to be a genocide for millions, hundreds of millions of people. Every time we try to create heaven on earth, it turns out really bad, because if we're still not experiencing heaven, it must be a group of people's fault, and so we'll kind of dehumanize this group of people. Oh, those silly Alabama fans over there, we'll just get rid of those people. But you see how you can start to dehumanize people, and that's what happens from an atheistic perspective. Okay, let's do it from, what are you, poly? All right, so the nature of God from polytheism is that we've got a bunch of gods. In fact, we might be gods. Not necessarily a God that's outside of this universe that created everything, but basically we can kind of manifest or think our way into being God. So maybe each of us is gods. Maybe the gods live here with us on earth. Thor lived on earth. And so it's a God inside of time, space, and nature. Man's nature probably is good. Probably it's not inherently bad, because there's no such thing as a savior from this perspective. The cause of suffering, because there's so many different things, the cause of suffering is probably maybe the human race is bad because nature's good and animals are good. So the cause of suffering is really mankind, not individual responsibility, but mankind. So really the solution then is to get rid of mankind, is to maybe help people die sooner, help people not have as many children, because mankind is the cause of suffering. So that would be the solution then. All right, so let's do pantheism. What's the nature of God from a pantheistic perspective? Well, God is not outside of time, space, and nature. There's no God that created everything. It's kind of an illusion in our minds. We're kind of perceiving it. And God is in all things. God is in this room. God is in the chair. God is in the water. God is in the stage. God is kind of in all things. But he's not a powerful, mighty God outside of time, space, and nature that created everything, right? The nature of man is that we are inherently good for the most part, but any sin that we have, we need to get rid of our possessions, get rid of our desires, and that will help us get to our fully achieved utopia, which is called nirvana, which means that we have to get rid of not just our house and our stuff, we got to get rid of our families. We got to get rid of our husbands and our children. Anything that we desire, we have to separate ourselves from. That's not exactly the worldview that I would hope would be true. The next thing we got to figure out is, when we answer these questions about worldview, is where did everything come from? Well, from an atheistic perspective, everything just kind of came out of accident. Our identity is that we're just a bunch of molecules bouncing around. Our purpose is we don't really have one, so there's really no reason not to do whatever we want to. In fact, they don't like to admit it, but there's really no reason not to end our lives right now. And so if things aren't going well, they might be more likely to think suicide would be a good solution to end everything, right? Because there's no purpose. Morality, what determines right and wrong for the atheist, is whatever I think, whatever the majority agrees on. When we discuss that, let's talk about where, that means that just everything's your opinion. So if I get a bunch of people to agree that it's a good idea to steal your wallet, then that makes it okay to steal your wallet. Well, we know that's not true. So that can't really be the test for what's right and wrong, but that's what an atheist would have to say. And then the destiny for an atheist is really nothing. That after this life is over, we just kind of, cease to exist. So let's go to our theist buddy over here. So the theist, this is where we're alike in some ways, is the theist all three, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, we all believe in a God that is outside of this universe. So unlike the other worldviews, our God is big enough and powerful enough and strong enough and eternal enough to be outside of time, space, and nature, okay? And so God's nature is that he is eternal, he's powerful, he's personal, he's moral, he's intelligent, very much different than the gods that they say they don't believe in. The nature from a theistic perspective, and this is more specific to just Christians, is that the nature of man is that we're inherently fallen, right? Because of the sin and the first original sin, we're inherently fallen and we have that fallen nature. And so that would be the cause of suffering, is that sin entered into this world. And so even if you were a person who didn't deserve anything bad to happen to them, because we live in a fallen world, bad things can happen to people who don't deserve it. So the solution for suffering from at least a Christian theist perspective is who? Jesus, right? No other worldview has a solution for suffering. There is suffering in all these worldviews, but no other worldview has a solution for that suffering. So that's very different. From the Christian specifically theistic perspective, our origin is that God created everything, right? Our identity is that we are made in the image of God, and that gives us eternal worth. The other worldviews can't explain why it's wrong to kill anybody, right? We all know it's wrong to murder, but says who? Only the Christian theist says, well, because I'm made in my Father's image, that gives me eternal value and worth. And that means that I should take care of my body, and I can't kill other people, and I can't I don't have the authority to end somebody else's life because they have that eternal worth made in God's image. Our purpose is to know God and make him known. The other worldviews don't really have a purpose that they can claim because they don't have a big God that they serve. The morality from a Christian theistic perspective is what determines right and wrong for the Christian theist? God. We have an external source outside of human beings. The atheist, the polytheist, the pantheist, they don't really have an external source other than themselves. So all I have to do is get the majority opinion to be whatever I say. But guys, if I got the majority opinion back in 1930s and 40s Germany to say it's okay to kill Jewish people or anybody we don't like, does that make it right? No. We know that there's a morality outside of human opinion. Back 400 years ago, we had a majority opinion that it's okay to enslave people. Does that make it right? No. We have an external morality that comes from God. My boys have heard this a lot, so they're probably repeating it. But we have an external source of right and wrong, and that's God's nature. It's unchanging, and it's holy, meaning it's set apart from what we might want. And then finally, the destiny of the Christian theist. Well, actually, this is the destiny of people regardless of what you believe, but from the Christian theist worldview, our destiny is whatever is the result of our, kind of our decision making, whether we decide that we want to be separated from God for eternity or be with him. And so that's really kind of up to our decision making. So let's look at it real quick. We've gone through all this. Our God's nature, these are 7 characteristics of God's nature that I want us to talk about. Guys, you can sit down. Thank you so much. You did a fantastic job. Give them a hand, everybody. Yay. Thank you, guys. Have a seat. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, God's nature. Timeless, spaceless, immaterial. Y'all might have heard omnipresent. Timeless, spaceless, omnipresent. He's always present. Immaterial. Powerful enough to create things out of nothing. You guys, right here, if we wanted to bake a cake, we'd have to go get ingredients, right? Well, God had to make the ingredients for the universe out of nothing. That makes him incredibly powerful. He's personal to decide to create. Impersonal forces like gravity, they can't make decisions to create. They just always do what they're been programmed to do. Gravity always pulls down. Electromagnetism always does what it's supposed to do. But God had to be personal to decide to create. He's incredibly moral or holy. His nature is the standard for how we decide what's right or wrong, or how we discover what's right or wrong. And he's incredibly intelligent, guys. We have a code in I always use this example. Years ago, Noah and Ethan Driver were out at the back of my Jeep, and they walked up to my car and they wrote, "Noah was here," in the dirt on the back of my Jeep. Now, because I walked out and saw that message, Noah was here, did I think the rain and the wind were just so to make an N and an O and an A and an H? No. Natural forces, non-intelligent forces don't leave messages, right? That's evidence of a mind. That's evidence of a mind named Noah. But you have a message in your DNA that's way longer than 4 little letters. It's millions and billions of letters long. And it's a perfectly precise code that has to be done just so for you to even be here. Well, that's evidence for a mind. And so that's why we say God's nature is that he's timeless, he's spaceless, he's immaterial, he's powerful, he's personal, he's moral, and he's intelligent. Man's nature, we know that despite God's law written on our hearts, that we are still inherently fallen. We know that the causes of suffering are because of the effects of sin in a fallen world, and that the solution is that redemption from trusting in Jesus causes a change in our nature. It's not just that we decide, oh, I want to follow you, God, and I'm going to do my best. It's that God changes our nature. He changes our hearts to want to be more like him. So we know that our origin is that we believe in something, not nothing. Our identity is that we receive our identity from Christ. Our purpose is to know him and make him known. Our morality is objective from God, not subjective from us. And then our destiny is just dependent on our conversion. If we've been transformed, we'll be together with God for eternity. If we have not, we get separated. So we've gone through each of these. Y'all did a fabulous job with that. We can just wrap up. These are the essentials of Christianity. I always share with you 3, 2, 1 BGs. I can go into more detail if you want to, but we won't do that now. And then let me just leave you with this final message. So guys, I always encourage you that you will find your joy. If you're having trouble finding joy, I would encourage you to prioritize things like this: Jesus, others, and you. Always put Jesus in the forefront. Make that the lens that you see and decide everything. With your dating relationships, with your parent relationships, with your friend relationships, with the effort you do at school, with the effort you do with sports. Put it through that Jesus lens first, then others second, and then you, and you'll most likely find joy. And then let me close with this. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord lift up his face to you and give you peace. And so with that, I'm hoping that along with giving you peace, that we can also give you pizza. Let's see. Hey guys, is pizza here now? Perfect timing. Okay. All right, well, hey, Rob. Well, we've already blessed it, and so, guys, you were wonderful, but I just want you to think about your worldviews. I want you to think about your worldviews when you're watching TV, when you're watching movies. I want you to play a game called Find the Lie. So if it doesn't align with a Christian theistic worldview, I want you to figure out what worldview it's coming from. When you hear about multiverses and different things, I want you to kind of figure out if that aligns with a Christian theistic worldview or not. All right, that's it. Y'all can go get pizza. Thank you so much.
As Young fired.